Hello, welcome to my sewing room. It's Sarah. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you've not seen me before. I'm a creator. I love sewing and I love upcycling. So if you want to see something fabulous or make something fabulous and be inspired, stick around and let's see what's on the table today. Today I'm going to be sewing a bikini. I've been sewing my own bikinis now for maybe 2 years because I've got to an age where I don't want to wear a one piece yet. I don't feel I'm old enough. I know society puts pressure on women to wear one pieces when they get a certain age. However, I'm a bikini girl and I love swimming as well. So I want to be able to have a bikini that holds the girls in and keeps me safe, has good coverage on the pants, and I'm able to swim and be comfortable and walk around without having to worry about too much. I have this fabulous fabric, which is a 4-way stretch velvet fabric, which has a beautiful foil coating. I got this fabric from Funky Fabrics in the UK. They have an amazing selection of all different colours and patterns and stretches and finishes and gloss and matte and the velvet. You name it, they've got it. And once you choose your pattern, you can actually then choose to have the foil added. You know, I've chosen a snake print there, which is just simply gorgeous. And I think this was a copper colour because I wanted it to go with some other fabric that I have that has warm tones in it. You can have your fabric foiled in a multitude of colours, including a holographic multicoloured one or a clear one just to give a bit of shimmer to the fabric. And there's lots and lots of different patterns to choose from as well. This one, as I say, was snake, but there's so many different patterns to choose from, and it is just the most amazing fabric. I also have some power net in flesh colour, my flesh colour obviously, which I'm going to be lining the bikini with just to give it a little bit of extra hold and shape so that it stays in place basically. I also have lots of other bits and pieces that I bought from a company called Love and Lace in the UK. This is rubberized swim elastic to put in the legs and around the seams of the bra. I have underwire casing, which the underwires go into this casing and you sew that in. And I also had bra wires. Now, Love and Lace have a system where you can actually print off various different shapes and styles of bra wires, and it does all the different sizes. And you can actually measure your existing wire to the template, so it makes sure that you order the right size and the right shape. So I have this ready to wear bikini that I bought several years ago. That is my absolute favourite bikini. It fits amazingly. I can swim in it without falling out or having to pull it out of my bum. It's just brilliant. So I used this and I basically just got the wire and put it on the template on the Love and Lace website so that I knew when I ordered these few wires they were going to be exactly right when I make this bikini. So first things first, I actually drafted and copied this bikini. So this is the top, as I said. It's just a plain top two-piece cup with another piece that goes under here, under the wires and in the middle, and then another one that goes around the back and then straps obviously. And then the bikini bottoms, which are my absolute favourite. I really love these bikini bottoms. They're quite wide on the sides, so sort of like that on the sides. Not really high waist, because I don't really like the high waisted ones. I want them sort of sitting a little bit on my natural waist. They have fabulous little gathers all down the front. I don't know if you can see that, all down the front, the side section. So you have the front section that is flat with the power net in that keeps your tummy flat, and then the lovely gathered section that just give a little bit of shape and a little bit of interest just on the side. So firstly, what I'm going to do is actually draft a pattern from this stunning ready-to-wear bikini that I have that I know fits and I just love it. So I'll show you how to do that. Obviously I'm not going to draft the whole pattern with you because that would be really boring to watch, but I'll show you the principle of how to actually draft your pieces. So this is the pattern that I made. That's the back of the pants. Obviously that's cut on a fold, mirrored. So that's the back section. The front of the pants is like that, and then I have the gathered side sections where, as you can see, I've just allowed extra top and bottom to actually gather into that front section, and then that side bit joins the side joins the side of the back on there. So that all fits together, and then that obviously is under the gusset area there. So that's the pants, literally 3 pattern pieces, so easy. The inside of the pattern is exactly the same as the outside as well, which makes it really easy. So I have power net for the inside. I actually chose a neutral colour, a flesh colour, because I can then make different colour bikinis and it doesn't actually matter what colour the inside is. They actually use white on this one, so but I prefer something a bit more neutral. The top, you have a section that goes over the bust and a section that goes under the bust, and as you can see they're curved so that that's actually the front, so that's the front. Yep. So that basically goes into that curve, sewn into that curve like that to give you the shape of the bust. So I've already drafted the lower front cup of the bra, which is that bit there, and the upper front of the bra. So I'm just going to show you how to draft this back section. So I've got a piece of paper here, I don't know if you can see that on the cream table, but what I'm going to do is just lightly stretch that out until the elastic's stretched out but not the fabric. And it's really hard to see because obviously it's a stretchy fabric, but I've allowed a centimetre seam allowance on the front there, so that's where the seam is on the front, and then there's a centimetre seam allowance there. So then I just need to stretch that out very slightly, let go, so that's where the middle of the back is. You then want to have a fold over of that so that you can obviously put your clasp on. So you then need to add, I would say, another 3 or 4 centimetres just to be on the safe side. So that goes to there. Right, you also need to look at how much you've turned this over on the other side there. So I'll just get a tape measure and just measure that. That's actually folded over a centimetre and a centimetre. So it's like having a centimetre seam allowance effectively. So you need a centimetre all the way along the bottom. So that's that centimetre, and then you want a centimetre all the way along the top. So you can start just by drawing a centimetre away from that line. Now you need to be careful because you do need to just stretch that elastic out just to make sure, because the elastic's going to actually pull it in a little bit. So you want to be coming up to here. So then you can just draw, and you can just draw the line above where the bra is. So you can just remove that and then you just draw that line across there. It might take 1 or 2 practices just to actually make sure that it is the right fit. But believe me, it is worth it. So maybe don't use your favourite fabric for your first one, just to make sure you get the right fit. What you need to do then is actually draw this curve here. So what you can do is get as close to it as you can and draw around. But bearing in mind, that's not where the seam is going to be. So that needs to come more like that. So that's like that. And what I say is add your seam allowance onto there. So that should be that front and side and back strap there. So looking at that, I'd say it's a little bit high, just there. So I need to just bring that down a bit. And sometimes it is just a little bit of trial and error. And what I'd say is once you cut it out, once you've cut that out in the paper, put it back onto the fabric again, just to make sure. So I'm not going to cut that because that's the seam allowance, that front bit. So I'm just going to draw, so I cut around there. And then cut around there. So that's the front. So let's just place that on the front of here now. And you can see that it is actually a pretty good fit. Now the bit that's important is under here. I'm going to take that down very slightly there. That's to there. Actually, I might not need to. And the thing is just to keep tweaking it until you've got the right shape. So that's the back strap. So that's the back strap. Next bit is this little front under bust triangle area. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold that in half. This is a washable pen, so it will wash out. Line up the seams under the bust, and I'm just going to mark the front. This is washable pen, so it will wash out, so don't use a Sharpie or anything crazy on your nice bikini. So I just want the front, because this is going to be cut on the fold. So that's going to be like that. There's a little bit of stretch in that front section there, but not a huge amount. And then you just need to draw your 1 centimetre seam allowance on there. One centimetre seam allowance on there, you know that goes in there, and then you just want to manoeuvre your cup without moving it too much, and then draw about 1 centimetre away. So it's there. So that's roughly like that. And it is a little bit of trial and error just to get the right shape, but I'm just going to cut this around. And what you could do is actually cut it to the size and then add your seam allowances after, but I tend to add it as I go. So that's the centre front, so that needs to go on a fold. So just draw the fold line on your piece of pattern. And then I'm just going to check that that's pretty much the centre front section. So that's how you do it, and basically you need to do that for all the bits of your bra. So basically just flatten it all out. It's harder on this section under the bust because obviously it's stretched slightly into that shape there. But yeah, you just need to flatten out every section and draw around it, and then once you've drawn around it, just fit your pattern piece over the actual piece of fabric. Try not to stretch fabric because obviously bikini fabric is stretchable, so it is quite difficult to do. But double check and double check and double check until you think you've got the best fit you can possibly get to the pieces that you have with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. And then you can start cutting it out. And as I say, probably practice on an old t-shirt or something like that to start with, just to check that you've got quite a good fit. Now I'm going to start cutting out. Now if you have, this pattern that I've taken it from, is actually quite a random pattern, so you don't really need to pattern match or anything on that, or even have a direction on the pattern. However, this one has a definite direction, and I might want to just make sure that I've got the lovely gold section going down through the side, or maybe just 2 gold. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. I think I'm probably going to have the gold section going down through the middle. I might do it up that way. And that needs to be on a fold. One thing to be careful of when you're cutting out stretch like this is to just let the fabric rest. So don't overstretch it when you're cutting it. Before I did anything, I actually overlocked the fabric to the power mesh so that it actually acted as one fabric. Once all the sections were overlocked, I started to assemble the pants using clips to secure all the seams and then a very narrow zigzag stitch on a normal sewing machine. So I've just laid the original bikini bottoms on top of my new ones, and as you can see they do come up slightly bigger, but once you stretch it out you can see that it is going to be a similar size. So what I need to do is measure around the leg so I can get the length of the elastic to go in the leg. So don't stretch it, just literally measure from that seam under the crotch there all the way around the leg, which is 57. So I need to cut the elastic for the legs at 57, and then the elastic around the waist I can just measure half, and then the elastic around the waist at about 74, and then I shall sew it in, zigzag the elastic in on the edge of the fabric here, and then I'll fold it over and then zigzag again over the elastic so that it'll have one set of zigzags that you can see on the outside, and that'll be the only thing visible, because that's how it's done on the original. If you just look at the original, it's just literally a zigzag. So they've sewn the elastic to the edge and then zigzagged it on the actual outside of the fabric. So I'm going to zigzag the elastic on the inside of the pants first of all, and then I'll turn it over and zigzag it again. So I'm just going to set the machine on zigzag stitch. So I'm going to have a width of 4, I think, and a length of 2.5, and see how that works. You just need to pull the fabric, because the elastic is tighter than the fabric at the moment, so just pull the elastic just to stretch it out until the fabric is flat, and then just sew. So I finished sewing the elastic on that, so you can see it's a zigzag stitch, which makes it still stretchy. And then I'm just going to fold that over now on the top and do exactly the same, zigzag. So literally just zigzag all the way around the top. So the pants are finished. I've sewn the elastic into the waist, so that's lovely and firm now, and also around the legs in exactly the same way. So it just holds the shape, because obviously this fabric is very stretchy, but the elastic just makes it a bit more firm, and it will make it just hug your body a lot nicer. So that's the pants finished. Now I'm going to attempt the top. So I've overlocked all the edges, and I've got the power mesh actually overlocked to the fabric, and I've laid it all out so that you can see exactly how it's going to go together. So we've got the upper cup, the lower cup, the back and sides, and then the centre front. So I need to sew all of this together. Then I need to add some tubing, which is for the wire underneath the bust, and then put the wires in, and then I still need to make the straps. So long way to go, but let's just start with basic construction. So first I'm going to sew the 2 cups together to actually form the cups. Then I'm going to attach these underneath to form the whole bottom band, and then I'm going to attach the bottom band to the cups. So I just installed the first bra wire casing. Basically what I did, I took my bra wire, I took a length of casing and basically just put it onto the bra wire so that the bra wire was covered at both ends by about 1 centimetre or so. Yeah, so that's the length I needed, and I cut 2 the same length. What I did then was cut this seam allowance down so it's not as bulky underneath the casing. Well, first of all, just need to cut the seam allowance so that it's a lot less bulky. So I cut it down to about 0.5 centimetre. And then get the casing, so start there, and then just stitch it around the actual bottom of the cup, but make sure you sew it onto the front, centre front and bottom band, not actually onto the cup, because you don't want the wire on the cup, you want it on the band, supporting the band underneath. So that's sewn the side closest to the cup. Just check on the other side that everything looks okay, and it does. So you just need to then sew on the other side of the channel so that it secures it to the back band and the centre front. So make sure it's not bunched up by just gently easing it away. And then that's nicely sewn in on the other side as well. So I actually realised I just did that in the wrong order, because if I look at this, the actual channeling for the underwire actually is on top of that bottom band. So I actually need to just put the elastic in the bottom and turn that over first, and then stitch the bottom, the casing for the underwires. So literally on mine, I've just unpicked just around the bottom edge there, to allow me to do that on both sides, and I've cut some elastic to the right length. I'm just going to zigzag that along the bottom of there, and then fold that over and finish that edge, and then I can actually sew the channeling for the underwires on there as well. So bit of a mess up, but we can put that right, not a problem. So I've redone that. So I put the elastic now in the bottom along there, and then I've re-sewn the casing for the wire. So from the front, it now looks like that, and it's looking a lot more like a bikini top. I'm quite pleased with how it's looking. So I just need to put the elastic up through these two sides now, and then down around the back and the armhole, and then add some straps to the top of here. So finally I need to make some straps. So I basically sewn a tube and put the elastic inside to make the strap. So this is the other tube that I've sewn. As you can see, it's just a tube. I've turned it in the right way. So I'm just going to attach a safety pin to the elastic, and literally all I did was thread the elastic up through the tube. It is a bit fiddly, but it gives quite a good result, and it obviously gives it a little bit more stability than just having the stretch fabric. So once the ends are both through, just gently stretch until the elastic is in completely, because the elastic was cut to the right length. So for neither of the things to be stretched, it needs to be like that. So then make sure the seam on the back is straight, which it is, and then the straps are ready to attach. So I've sewn the straps, and I've cut a little bit off the bottom just so that I can sew a little tag in there, so that once the strap is sliding, it's actually got something to slide through. And then I've attached a little slider on there. Unfortunately, I didn't have a silver one, which is what's on there, so I've had to go for black. So what I need to do is just thread that through there, like that, and then thread that through there. Like that. So that's the actual strap. So that needs to be sewn in place there, and then this needs to be attached into the strap here. So I just need to unpick that side a little tiny bit, and then actually slide the strap inside there, and then that'll be a nice smooth strap all the way around. So I finished sewing the bikini. I've had to put a little darked just in the front there because the front was just too wide. So I need to make sure when I make it again, I just cut that section down very slightly. I've changed the square things to rings on the back because they need to be able to twist around, otherwise it comes at a funny angle. I've attached those back bits along that section there with a zigzag stitch, and I've also done these straps. So I've actually done the straps there. I should have made this strap very slightly wider so that that strap could be accommodated into there easier. As you can see, there's a slight bulge. Doesn't notice very much when it's on, but it is there. I've also attached a catch just to the back there. Again, just a couple of rows of zigzags just on there. You can't even see on the outside. So that's my bikini finished. The bottoms and the top. I will put some footage on of me actually in it so that you can see how it fits. But I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope it's given you some inspiration on how to sew swimwear and given you some ideas of how to copy patterns as well. If you liked the video, please click like below. I'd love you to subscribe to my channel as well. I will be creating a lot more. The next video I'm going to do is actually a short set in this lovely stretch crochet fabric. So come back and see that one soon. I'll see you soon.